Hello, my charmed ones, and welcome to my Planning for Success Masterclass. Thank you so much for joining me today on what I know is going to be a very informative and action-oriented class that will be teaching you my strategies and approach to planning for success. I'm sure that most of you already know who I am and are familiar with my work, but in case I have anyone here who stumbled upon this class by chance or was gifted this class by a friend or family member, let me quickly introduce myself. Hello, my name is Alexis, but I'm known across the internet by my handle MissTrenchcoat. I'm a self-made entrepreneur that creates digital content to help you work smarter, not harder. I blog at my website, strangecharmed.com. I create weekly videos on business, productivity, and planning on my successful YouTube channel, MissTrenchcoat, and I sell a variety of digital products from online courses, masterclasses, printables, and ebooks over on my online shop called thecharmedshop.com. And most of all, I love productivity, and I consider myself a lifelong student of it. This is because I really do consider myself one of the world's laziest people. And if you are familiar with my work and you think that I'm as far from lazy as they come, I have to tell you, I really am very lazy. But the truth is that studying and executing on productivity and planning can really help you do more while working less, which is why I love the subject. Most of all, I'm very interested in living a life and running a business that is as free of stress, drama, and overwhelm as possible. Too many people live that way and run their businesses that way, and I see far too many people working too hard towards undefined ends and goals that they aren't invested in. So today, I really want to inspire more people to live what I call a charmed life that is focused on achieving your own goals and not just helping others achieve theirs. Many of you watching this probably work jobs in a corporate or professional business setting where your day-to-day activities are dictated by the targets and goals of your company. And by the time you come home from work, you're either exhausted from that or you immediately jump into helping other people with their problems, and you have no clarity or time for the goals of your own life. Now, I'm not saying that by the end of this class, I want people to quit their jobs or leave their families. On the contrary, I think that many of you need your jobs and love and prioritize your family. But I think there is a better way to live so that your job is either a place you want to be and enjoy working, or is the means to help you financially achieve other goals and priorities in your life. And there is a way to manage your family life so that they remain a priority in your life, but that you have time for yourself and your other goals and dreams as well. So today I want to teach you my approach to planning for success so that you can take these strategies and apply them to your life and start living on your own terms. So to teach you this today, there is a single question that I am going to strive to answer for you. How do you become successful? This is a question I am sure you have asked yourself. I know I ask myself all the time. And I'm sure in signing up for this class, you've been pondering what success is and how you achieve it. So this is going to be the question I will address today. And in doing so, I hope my answer resonates with you so that you can see what success looks like to you and understand how you will start the journey to achieve it. According to Aristotle, you are what you repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Now, the first thing you need to understand in order to answer the question of how do you become successful is that success is not a one-time destination. Sure, it can be. You can win a race, land a job, or buy the house, and that win is a piece of success. But there is a difference between experiencing success intermittently and becoming a person who is habitually successful. And this is where my concept of a charmed life comes in, because in order to become a person who has control over their life and destiny, you can't live for the little wins. You need to make success part of your DNA. When you make success a habit, you get more of what you want on a regular basis. You achieve more goals and you feel a sense of peace with your life that no one successful moment can bring you. Redefine success. And what being a success looks like will be different for each of you. 100% I know that to be true. Each of you are unique individuals with different life situations, different interests, passions, and skills. And to say that there is one model for what success looks like is a bold-faced lie. I realize the world likes to project an image of what success is, but we each know that that's a joke. Society might point to a person and say, this person has money and power and looks. That is what success is. But we all know that many times those quote-unquote successful people are deeply wounded, isolated, and sometimes even troubled. Money can't buy you love or happiness. We know that. So let's right now just dismiss that idea of what success looks like as a farce, so we can move on to identifying what success looks like for each of us. Because if you keep that one ideal in your mind, and it's not the ideal that fits your true priorities in life, you will be pushed off course. Colin Powell very aptly stated that success is the result of preparation, hard work, and persistence. And that is the model I personally follow in my own life. I know what success means for me, and I know the way I can bring it to fruition habitually in my life. So let's break down these words of wisdom into real actionable strategy, shall we? Preparation, hard work, and persistence. That is what we're going to focus on, because all three of these elements are within our control. Preparation is the process of goal setting, identifying what you want and how you would like to get there. Hard work is about establishing systems like functional planning and time management. Persistence is routine building, making excellence a habit in your life so that success is inevitable. So these three elements, goal setting, systems, and routine building, the strategic equivalents of preparation, hard work, and persistence, will be the three topics I will break down for you today into actionable items. Okay, so now let's discuss the first strategy for success, goal setting. Goal setting is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. Tony Robbins. Goal setting is important because you can't achieve success unless you know what it looks like. Do you want to buy a car, start your own business, just have a clean and organized home? Unless you identify what your measure for success is going to be, you won't be able to make it happen. Goal setting is the process of deciding what you want to accomplish and creating a plan to get there. You've probably heard it before. A goal is a dream with a deadline. Once you understand what you want and have laid out how you think you can get there, time and action are all that comes between your dream and reality. Personally, I do go through a goal setting process annually and usually check on my progress at the mid-year mark. But you can really start anytime. If you don't have any goals laid out for yourself, or you have them in your head and you haven't broken them down out onto paper, use the class materials to solidify them. The first step in the goal setting process is identifying your priorities. Priorities are the things in your life that are more important and deserving of your focus or attention. For the purpose of goal setting, solidify your top 3 to 5 priorities first. Then rank them in order of their importance so you understand what really comes first for you in your life. This is key because there may come times where you need to make a choice between priority number 1 and number 2, and knowing what comes first will help you make tough decisions. For me personally, my top 5 priorities are myself, my husband, my dog Starbuck, my business, and my home. Yes, I put myself on that list and I'm right at the top. Why? Because without me, none of these priorities or goals matter. If I'm not taken care of first, practically speaking, there is nothing for me to achieve. I can't set your priorities for you, but I would highly recommend that your first priority be yourself always. For each priority, it is important that you be able to acknowledge why each is a priority for you. If you can't put into words or make a logical argument to yourself why something belongs on your priority list, then it isn't worth fighting for and shouldn't be on that list. Once you have your priorities in order, literally, then you need to set your goals. Goals are things you want to achieve, experience, or become. They aren't things you want to have unless buying them requires significant planning like a home or car. The goals that you set should always be in line with your priorities and be an offshoot of them. What is the point of having a goal that relates to something that isn't a priority in your life? I think when people set goals that don't align with their priorities, that is when I see them wasting their time and not feeling fulfillment. Now, when it comes to setting goals, you should only set 1 to 3 per priority in a given year. Anything else will most likely be too much to manage. Now, this process of goal setting can and should take you a significant amount of time to accomplish because your goals aren't simple things. It personally takes me a few weeks to nail down what I want my goals to be for the coming year because I tend to set really meaningful goals for myself. So spend time in introspection, journaling, or talking to close friends or family to get clear on what those goals will be for yourself. And let the process take time so you set meaningful goals for yourself. As you are working out your goals, something to keep in mind is identifying each as SMART or stretch goals. SMART goals follow the acronym SMART, which means they are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. When you set a SMART goal, it means you have a clear outline for what you are doing, and as much as possible, you should make sure to break down your goals into these 5 characteristics. If a goal can't be broken into these parts, it's potentially not something you will be able to accomplish. But not all goals fit this model. Sometimes goals are much bigger or audacious, and we can call these stretch goals. They are goals that push the limits of what is normally considered possible or a reasonable expectation of reality. Now, I would not normally coach you to set many stretch goals. However, there are situations where stretch goals are important for stimulating creativity or making an impossible thing happen. I don't believe that very many things in life are impossible, and I think people can achieve great things when they set their mind to it. So if you have a big, scary goal that you think is within the realm of possibility, understand that this is a stretch goal and that you may not be able to outline a direct path to accomplish it the way you would with a SMART goal. So start with a reasonable plan, knowing that you can't see the rest of the staircase and you may need to adjust course as you go. Once you have your goals outlined from your priorities, you will next need to determine the projects you will need to accomplish in order to attain the goal. For this step, you will reverse engineer projects to help you bring your goals to fruition. When you reverse engineer, you always start with the end in mind and work your way backwards. Ask yourself, what are you trying to achieve and how you may be able to get there? Next, research your goal. Find someone who has done it before or ask others for input on the action steps that you will need to take. You don't need to know every single step, but you should have an idea of how you accomplish the goal so you can determine the actions that might get you there. And a point I want to make about this research step is that it is very important that you do your homework on your goal if you have never done it before. You need to understand that no single person out there knows how to do something that they've never done before. And unfortunately, there is no master guide you can Google online to find out exactly how to do something. All you can do is find out as much as possible about the goal you are undertaking and speak to those who may be able to give you insight into its completion. And then you need to make your best judgment on how to proceed. Finally, brainstorm several strategies if necessary, and start with the most complete idea or the path of least resistance. For many goals, there are a multitude of ways to accomplish what you want. So it's good to identify all the ways you think you can make something happen before deciding on the path you will take. Having options is always good because it may take you more than one try to make a goal happen. And you can set a plan A, plan B, plan C, etc., or rely on a combination of these plans to help you achieve your goal. Once you have brainstormed and chosen the projects you want to undertake to get you to your goal, you need to map them out. Outline your projects on a master goal or project tracker. The one I use is included in your class materials. First, break out each project into short-term, mid-term, and long-term projects. Short-term projects can take you days to weeks to accomplish. Mid-term projects take you weeks to months to accomplish. And long-term projects take you several months to a year or even more. When you list out your projects on your map, make sure to include specific tasks or milestones for tracking purposes. These subpoints will help you keep track of your progress overall without consulting individual project planning sheets. And finally, I suggest keeping this map with your planner and consult it regularly. not just when you are working on specific projects, but also when you're considering committing to another obligation. Everything you say yes to ultimately takes time away from you achieving your goals. So it's a good habit for you to look at this sheet and double check it before you say yes to someone or something that may put a strain on your schedule. Now I want to address a very common question I receive, and that is, how many projects should I have? The answer to this is really a matter of how much you are trying to achieve in a year and how much you feel you are personally capable of achieving. My rule of thumb is not to have more than 3 projects for each time frame. So for short-term projects, which are days to weeks to accomplish, I like to consider it a monthly basis and say no more than 3 short-term projects in 1 month. So 3 times 12 months is 36 short-term projects for a year. Then midterm projects are about a quarter, 3 months. So 3 times the 4 quarters in a year is 12 midterm projects. Then I say longer-term projects are about half a year on average. So 3 times 2 halves of the year are 6 projects. Add them all up, and that's a total of 54 projects for a year. I feel like that's a lot, but if you have work projects and personal projects, I think 54 is a good cap. But for me personally, I do about 25 to 30 projects a year between personal and business projects. And I'd say I'm a pretty high achiever. But then again, my life is much simpler than most people's right now. Could I do more? I could for sure. But why stretch myself thin if I don't have to? So think about that when you're making your own project map and choosing how much to undertake. I personally would prefer to be realistic with my time and underestimate how much I can do and overestimate how long a project will take me, and then get everything done that I'm shooting for. I will talk about this concept a little more later, but for now, be realistic. And a second question I'm asked about often is, what about my 3, 5, or 10-year plan? These are concepts we hear about, I think more so in corporate work settings, but you could have a 10-year plan for your life in general, I suppose. Now, to answer this, as much as possible, I avoid planning too far in advance. It's hard enough planning for 1 year, let alone 5 or 10 years at a time. For one, what happens if and when things change? Because life is like that. What you want 1 year might be different than what you want another year. And what happens if you get that job next year and not in 3 years like you anticipated? I've seen that happen to people where they got further in their career sooner than expected and then sort of panicked about where to go from there because it wasn't something they had ever thought about before. I think that's a good problem to have, getting further in your career quicker than expected, but accelerated change does come with challenges of its own. But perhaps more likely, what if you never get that job or you decide to change fields? Planning far in advance can be tricky. And if you are relying on something happening that doesn't happen, you may have just dug yourself into a hole. I don't like the idea of expectations in life because nothing is really promised to you. And assuming you will get or have something at a certain point leads to a lot of disappointment. Let's take me for an example. I just bought my first home and I'm 30. Am I early, late, or right on time? Who's to say? I know people who bought their first home with their first job out of college, and I know people who are in their 50s and have never owned a home yet. Who says what is right and what is wrong? And should someone tie their feelings of personal success to arbitrary measures like this? I would prefer not. Of course, if you have goals for where you want to be in X number of years, that's great. I just think you should be using those goals to guide your yearly planning. My biggest problem with longer-term planning is that things that feel far away don't always get priority or feel urgent. So instead of putting a goal on your 5-year plan, decide what actions you can take this year to make that happen and get the ball rolling. If this sort of longer-term planning is something you're interested in, my You Got This workbook goes into managing longer-term life planning. But today's class is not about that. Today's class is about what we can do right now, today, and in the short term to generate success, not what may or may not happen in a decade. Okay, so now let's take a look at how I approach this goal-setting process, using some of the class materials and some personal examples to help you see this process in action. Okay, so the first process I want to show you in this planning for success model that I'm teaching you today is how to get from your priorities to your goals. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that using some of the class materials that I've included for you guys to use to actually work through to learn and implement all of these strategies. So the first worksheet I have here is the My Yearly Goals worksheet, which it's basically just a simple grid, and it says to assign up to 3 goals to each of your priorities. And what we have here is we've got a section going down the side for your priorities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however you want to do it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however you want to go. Maybe put number 1 on top and 5 at the bottom so that visually you've got a hierarchy. And then you can assign up to 3 goals, as I've told you guys um, in the lecture portion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in my priorities. And I've already told you guys that my first priority is me, okay? It's important for me to be well and for me to have my things in order so that I am obviously like working at full capacity and able to help others as well as myself. So I'm number 1, my husband's number 2, Starbuck is number 3, my business is number 4, and my home is number 5. I'm sorry, I don't know why I just wrote number 9. It's number 5. Okay, so other than that little typo, now I've got my priorities listed 1 to 5, okay? So the rest of this sheet needs to be filled out with up to 3 goals that relate to each of the priorities. Again, we don't want to have priorities that have goals that relate to things that really aren't priorities to us. I think that for most of you here on the call today, this is what is going to be the most important for you, is that you want to make sure that your goals are aligned with your priorities first. So I'm going to set this aside right now. And what I'm going to show you next is the Turning Priorities into Projects worksheet. So you use this worksheet to break each priority into 1 to 3 goals. As we've said, we've got the 1 to 3 goals lined out here, and to brainstorm possible projects to make your goals a reality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one priority and walk you guys through this process. So I think the priority I am going to show you guys today, how we're going to break this down, is perhaps my husband, right? So the priority is Mike, okay? And the next question here, it says why. So you're choosing the priority, and why is this a priority? Like I said, you need to know why things are a priority. So I'm going to say, because he's my husband, I love him, and we have chosen to build a life together. Okay, so pretty good reason why somebody is a priority. Okay, so what 3 goals do I have for Mike, right? So these aren't necessarily goals where I think these are things he should do. These are my goals related to him. Okay, so 3 goals that I could have for myself and Mike would be to continue to build our relationship. Okay, that could be number 1. Number 2 could be that maybe this year we should take a vacation together. Okay, that would be a cool goal. And goal number 3 is maybe for me to support his alone time. So how I can support Mike developing, his own alone time for his own hobbies and his own priorities, okay? Because it's not all about me and him. I also want to make sure that I'm supporting his time as well. So those could be 3 general goals that I have for Mike. So next, what I'm going to do is, it says project brainstorm. So now we're going to brainstorm different projects, different things I could do, different ways that I could continue to build the relationship, different ways we could go on vacation, and different ways to support his alone time. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and brainstorm this, and you'll obviously be able to see what's going on. Okay, so really quickly, and just for the sake of time, I just put 3 projects under each of these goals. So under continue to build relationship, I put spend time together, right? That would be a good way to build a relationship. Get a joint activity, maybe something he and I could do together, and maybe have some date nights, okay? For the vacation, I just came up with 3 ideas. We want to go to Aruba together. I've been, but he's never been. We love Disney World, so I put Disney World. And I also put staycation because, we could do instead of doing like a real vacation where we go out somewhere, we could just have a staycation. That's something we could do to spend time together for a vacation. And then support his alone time. I put man cave because Michael does have his own like man cave office, and I could help him maybe get that man cave up and running because it's not currently really up and running. I could help him find maybe a new hobby, right? Maybe support him in that. Maybe something where he could play sports or something out of the house so he has his own time. And also, I could kind of do my own thing, right? Learn to like do my own thing. So that's a little bit of a more obscure project, but these were some ideas for how I could make each of the goals happen. Okay, so now that I have these sort of ideas brainstormed out, the next thing I want to do is go to this SMART goal worksheet, okay? Because I want to make sure that any of these projects that I do really do align with the goal and are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the goal that I have, which is to continue, let's do this one, continue to build relationship. That's one of the goals, okay? And I'm going to take that goal and I'm going to take this idea I had here, the spend time together, and I'm going to make it smart, right? I'm going to make this action smart so that I've got a SMART goal set up with this. So instead of saying spend time together, I need to make this more specific, right? So I could say that we're going to spend, let's say 3 evenings together a week, maybe 3 evenings a week. Measurable. Well, we know that if we're doing 3 evenings a week together, then I can measure it by the evenings. So I could measure the evenings together. That's how it's measurable. Actionable. Is this something that I have control over? Yes. I will make sure we spend time together. Okay, is it realistic? Yes, it's realistic. Three evenings a week is realistic. And is it timely? So this is not specifically something that is going to be like a one and done. Like I do it one time and it's over, because this is continue to build a relationship. So yes, this is timely in the sense that we're going to measure it on a weekly basis. Okay. But it's not like something that has a due date, but I still think that it's smart because we're laying out a plan. So we're going to continue to build our relationship by spending 3 evenings a week together. Okay. So we could even get more specific, right? And say speak 3 evenings, not just together, but doing a mutual activity. So we've both got to be doing something together. Okay. So that's how we make this specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. What I also have down here is a stretch objective, right? So these are the SMART objectives, but we also have a space here to set an objective that maybe is a little bit of a stretch. Now, during your lesson, you learned that a stretch goal is something that is really pushing the bounds of what is possible. Now, I don't just mean this in terms of something really big and complicated that may or may not be possible in people's lives. It could also just be setting an objective that is a little bit more, like maybe it's going a little bit further, pushing it a little bit, but still within the realm of possibility. So for a stretch, what I'm going to set here is I'm going to say that Out of the 3 evenings that we're spending together a week, one needs to be a date night. So we actually have to go out during one of those nights together. Okay? So that would be my stretch. Is it possible? Yes. Is it going to be super easy? Not necessarily. We'd have to actually do a little bit of planning to make sure, what we want to do, what we're going to go out to do, but we're going to have a date night once a week. So that I think is a reasonable stretch objective. Now, obviously, because this pertains to not just myself, but also my husband, I need to make sure this is all good with him, but we're going to assume that everything is good with this and that we have our SMART goal set up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and just sort of fill out these yearly goals, right? After you've done this for all of your goals and kind of defined your projects, you can go ahead and put those goals in here. So I'm going to just make myself some goals here. Okay, so here are some goals that I might set for my priorities for the year. Okay, so some of them have 2, some of them have 3. It's really not a big deal. It's up to 3 as long as you've put at least one goal that aligns with, some of your priorities, not even all of them. If I didn't want to make a goal for Starbucks, I wouldn't, but I have put just some examples in. So for me, I put, I could lose 20 pounds, read 12 books, and create a regular self-care routine here. For Mike, you already knew that those were continue building a relationship, go on a vacation together, and support his alone time. For Starbucks, I put take him on walks regularly, visit the park once a month. For my business, I put beat prior year revenue, increase my followers. And for my home, I put make the house presentable, get the house organized, and plan social gatherings. So these are just some examples, and I might actually use some of these examples again in the future, which is why I wanted to walk you through. This is how you put together this yearly goal page. So the next printable that you have that goes along with all of this is the project planning matrix, right? So we've got our goals laid out. Hopefully you've done this SMART goal worksheet and actually taken your goals and made them specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, timely, and maybe added a stretch goal or a stretch objective if you wanted to. And I hope this shows you how you can actually take your goal, what you're trying to do, and by breaking it down into a SMART goal, you can actually create your own project, right? So you can create a project almost by breaking down your goal, right? That actually even helps with your project brainstorm. So we've got one of these goals broken down, and we've got the project planning matrix, right? So what I'm going to do here, okay, since we've already filled this out, is I'm actually going to just transfer this SMART goal over onto the project planning matrix. And this is how I would do it with something like this, kind of this building a relationship with my husband, spending time with him. So because we are going to be evaluating this on a weekly basis, we're calling this a short-term goal. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to just mark down on this project planning matrix. I'm going to put QT with Mike, right? So quality time with Mike. And what I'll do is I'll actually put it in every monthly slot. And actually the way that you use this is you would actually put the months along the top. So what I'll do real quick is I'm just going to pretend it's the beginning of the year. So I'm going to put January, February, March, and so on. Okay, but if you want to use this immediately right now, definitely put whatever the month is and plan out your next 12 months if that's the way you want to do it. I'm just doing this for simplicity's sake so everything lines up nicely, because this planning matrix has a box for every month, a box for every quarter, and a box for every half. And that's the way I break down the short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. So I'm going to go ahead and put quality time with Mike into all of the boxes. Okay, so you see they're all written out there. And that just helps me to keep track of the fact that I am marking this as a priority. This is something that is an ongoing project. It's going to require of my time because 3 nights a week, I need to make sure that I'm planning out some events with my husband, either at home or hopefully 1 night a week will be out. So there is some planning that is associated with this. So it needs to go on the project planning matrix. So all of the projects that you create from your goals, from these SMART goal worksheets, need to be laid out in their proper time frame here. So like I said, this was a once a week thing. So I thought, you know what, we'll measure this on the month. I'll just, kind of check this off every month. If every month I'm able to do the weekly hang out with my husband. So I hope that is clear and makes sense to you guys. So now that you've seen the way that that planning matrix kind of works, I wanted to really quickly share with you guys an old planning matrix of mine from 2015. So this is actually my project planning outline from 2015. Obviously, we're in 2016 as this is being filmed. So I feel pretty safe showing you guys like all these business plans because they've all already come to fruition. But you can see that I've broken down here in the monthly. I have a variety of different activities that I wanted to do for specific months. I also have some goals that were set that were maybe midterm goals that were put in each quarter. So not every quarter has one, but actually here with this one here, this was empire building, which I started to create in Q1 of 2015, but it took me to Q2 in order to completely finish it, which is why it's on this one, but then it's kind of like pointing downwards into that second one. So this is, an example of a project that's kind of been laid out. And then here you can see I've got like a webinar here that I have laid out, and I have some major points, that were important for the webinar kind of listed out underneath of it. And then here for the longer term goals, I've got a planner bundle, which would have been the Charm Life planner, and then Charmed DSLR, which was another course that I created last, I think it was like last September that it was launched. But in this period of time, this is when I was focused on it. So you can kind of get an idea of kind of how things get laid out, at least on my end, for my projects. And obviously each one of these items, these individual items, each had a project planning page that were devoted to it. But we're going to talk about that in just a minute once we get into the second section of this masterclass. On to strategy number 2, systems. Remember, systems are the hard work we need to do in order to reach success. If you're too busy to build good systems, then you'll always be too busy. This is such a great quote from Brian Logue. He's absolutely correct. The only way you break out of the trap of being too busy is to put systems into place. So what are systems? They are a procedure, process, method, or course of action designed to achieve a specific result. In simpler terms, they are any process you take on a regular basis. We all have systems, whether we have them codified as such, and I'm going to talk about how to do that in a moment. And of course, planning systems are integral to the notion of success. That is exactly why this class is called Planning for Success. So we will talk about general systems in this section as well as planning systems. So first, how to systemize almost anything. Because anything you do repeatedly should be systematized. Any process you take regularly at work, at home, anywhere, you should view it as a system and treat it as such to save yourself time and energy in the doing of the thing. First, before you begin, make sure that the process is still relevant and necessary. I cannot tell you how many times when I worked in corporate land that I came across systems that were antiquated or duplicated work, or just no longer necessary. Admins who would fax invoices to customers even though the customer would be on a digital system and received their invoices automatically via email, and no one ever told the admin to stop, so she just kept the system going. Or analysts that were essentially duplicating reports because some manager asked his analyst to run a report and another manager asked his analyst, and both would email the report to everyone but not to each other, so they didn't realize they were both doing the same thing. There are just so many times that we don't question what we are doing and do it automatically out of habit. But the task is no longer necessary and we never stop to ask. Especially in your work, if you work outside the home, don't be afraid to ask if the work you are doing is relevant, because most of the time people are probably too busy themselves to think to tell you to stop, or they themselves don't know unless you start asking questions. So please keep that in mind. I bet you have some things on your plate that you can actually remove, and you don't know it yet. Okay, so to systematize any process, once you know it's still relevant, you first need to record the process for how it's done, as though you're training to teach someone else to do it. So once you have the system in mind you want to work on, you will go about your normal process for undertaking it and write down the steps and actions. Once the process is written or typed out, whichever you prefer, review and optimize it. Because we are codifying the process right now and turning it into a set of directions, so you need to look at the steps and see if you did anything out of order, or see if there's a way to shorten a certain task or part of the process to make it more effective. Anything to optimize it, edit that in the process. And then finally, you need to establish parameters for how the system and the individual actions in the process are triggered. So this is a process you undertake every day. When do you do it? Is there something that happens first that triggers you to start the process? Is there any way to streamline or batch this work by setting up new parameters for how the action is triggered? A really simple example of this from my own life would be when I worked as an analyst. I would have to run certain reports regularly. And when I first took the job, my trigger for running reports was that I got a request from a coworker for X report. And then I would go into the reporting system and run it. Well, I could get several of these requests a day, so I would be running all of these reports for all of these different people. But after a while, I started to see a pattern with the requests, that everyone seemed to be asking me for the same report with just slightly different parameters. So I decided that I would take all these parameters and run one big report on a weekly basis. And in Excel, I would take the raw report, which was a jumble of data, and I would create what is called a pivot table that allowed me to organize the information in the report so that I could send this report to any one of my coworkers and they could select the specific information they were looking for. It took me longer to do this one report than it did to quickly run one single report and send it off. However, I would run this report every Monday morning. First thing, manipulate the data in the pivot table and email it to everyone I was responsible for who would want it. I had to teach some people how to use the report to find the specific information they wanted, but after that initial time investment, I ended up saving myself so much time. It cut down tremendously on the number of requests, and it saved the people on my team time as well, because they didn't have to ask me for the report. They always had it bright and early Monday morning. So think about the systems in your day, things that you do over and over, and how you can simplify them by systematizing them and adding specific parameters to them so that you have control over the system and that you're not a slave to it. Of course, this process doesn't have to be for something you do daily. It also helps when it comes to doing tasks that only happen sporadically. I don't know about you, but things I have to do regularly but infrequently, like my monthly finances or my quarterly taxes or even my yearly taxes, when it comes time for me to do them, I always forget how to start. So codifying the system gives you a set of directions so you always know what to do, how to start, and what action comes next. Okay, so now I want to show you how I would systematize a project. And one of the worksheets I have here is the system worksheet, which is basically just a sheet to help you organize any of your regular tasks into a complete system. So I'm going to be filling this out and letting you guys watch along as I do it. So the system that I'm going to systematize here, and it really should say like codify. I'm actually writing it down so that it actually becomes like almost like the law, but it's just an organized system once we do this. The system I'm going to talk about here is my blog posts, right? So writing my blog posts. So I'm going to talk about how I systematized my blog posting. Okay. So description is how I generate and write blog posts. Okay, that's a description of the system. Okay, so then we have an area for action steps here. Okay, so we've got some like check marks if you want to go through like action steps, or if you want to use the check boxes to kind of number the steps. We also have a section here that says trigger. So basically we're going to talk about an action step and also what its trigger is, as you've already learned in the lecture. So when it comes to my blog post, the first action that I take is I will brainstorm content ideas. And I like to do this in the form of interesting titles, right? So when I brainstorm my content ideas, I think first about my blog post title. And that's kind of where my inspiration for the post will come from. Now, the trigger for this, I brainstorm my ideas. I sit down and actually plan out my brainstorm for these ideas. I will like to do it usually the last week of, so I'll say week 4 of prior month. Okay, so I put week 4 of PM. Okay, this is just to give me like a little bit of a shorthand. But the last week before a new month starts, I will brainstorm the content ideas in the form of interesting titles for the next month. I'll say for next month, because I do this on a monthly basis. My next step would be I lay out an editorial calendar. In my planner. Okay, so I take these content ideas, these titles, and lay out an editorial calendar in my planner. And I do this, again, week 4 of the previous month, step 2. Okay, so this happens after that. I go into step 2 here. Okay, these happen together. This content generation and then laying it out in the editorial calendar will happen all at once. Then when it comes time to me actually sitting down to write my blog posts, right? I will review the title of the post and create an outline. Okay? So that is the next step. Oh, I spelled review wrong. So I'll review the title of the post and create an outline based on it. I will also put in parentheses here, research if needed. Okay, so sometimes I might need to research a blog post idea. At that point, when I'm creating an outline, that's where I will go and sit down and research it. Okay, so generally, actually, depending on the way this is, this actually all kind of happens for a week. This all sort of happens if I'm planning out my blog posts and then I need to create the next week's content. This might all happen on one day, but for here, I'm just going to put Monday of prior week, okay? Because I always write my blog posts on Mondays, the week before they're supposed to be posted, okay? So the Monday of the prior week is when I will do this. I'll create the outline. Then I will write the content of the blog post. Okay, so then I write the content of the blog post. And that happens, this is step 2 on the same time frame because we do all these things together. There's an outline, then there's the content being written out. And I will actually put here ×3 because I like to bulk write all of my blog posts. So I will review the title and create an outline ×3, right? Because I'm writing a week's worth of content at one time. So I'll do this 3 times because it'll be 1 for each of the posts that are for the following week, okay? So once I have written the content, I'm going to put down that I will edit as I write each paragraph, because that's how I generally do it. As I write, and again, times 3, because this is for the 3 blog posts. And here we've got step 3 here. So the trigger here was that the content writing is happening and I edit as I write. So once all the writing is done, the next thing I do is select images to edit. Okay. So to edit for the post. Okay. Okay. Or take a photo. Again, times 3. So I will either select images that I already have that apply to the post, or I will take new photos if needed. And that could be up to 3. So I could, do, 3 images. It could be more than 3 really, but I just mean by the 3 years for the 3 blog posts. So this is step 4 then of my blog post thing, because it's just, they're being triggered by each other. Then, one at a time. I know I'm writing in like crazy shorthand right now. I will lay out the post in WordPress. Okay. So one at a time, they get laid out in WordPress. This is step 5. Okay. And the trigger, again, this is all done at one time. I will add the title, categories, and tags. That's step 5. Okay. That's step 6. That comes after. Okay. For each of them. Then I will schedule the post. That'll be step 7. And then that puts it kind of live in my system. So that's really the end of it, because once I've scheduled the post, it's up to actually publish. But I could say one final item would be to check to see that the post published it. Okay, because sometimes my system actually will kind of mess up and it might not publish the post. So I need to do that. I do like to check on the day of publishing. Okay. And I would say after 9 a.m. because I schedule my posts. And I should say that I schedule them here. I could add here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday at 9 a.m. because that's the schedule that my blog posts go on. Okay. And then check to see that the post has published on the day of publishing after 9 a.m. So it's not a big deal. Like I don't feel like just right at 9 a.m. I have to go check. Just sometime in the day, I just like to check to make sure that it did go live. So that is my complete blog posting system. So as you're doing this, like I know this system like the back of my hand. So I didn't have to edit anything. We kind of edited as we went, but if there was something here that didn't make sense or I needed to do things in a different order, I would definitely make sure I rearrange those until this system is actually complete. So now what I have here is a complete blogging process for how I write my blog posts. So if I were, going to write my blog posts and confused, or I'm like, what am I supposed to do next? Or I just wasn't feeling motivated, I could pull this out and be like, nope, you do this next. Or if this was something I didn't do very often, like I think I gave the example of my taxes. I do my taxes quarterly, my estimated taxes, and then once a year we do the full business taxes. And it's a process that I, would like to refer to a system like sort of action list. So that's exactly what I have here. And I can store this away and save it for when I need it. Or if I had an assistant, I could give this to them and say, this is the process you're going to take.
and go forth and do it. So having these little system sheets is pretty helpful, and you do get this kind of this worksheet. It's very simple, and you could fill this out for all the systems that you're trying to simplify and just codify so that you know always what you're doing.
Okay, now we move on to the topic of planning systems, and specifically functional planning. Functional planning is a method of planning that prioritizes action towards desired goals. It dictates a system that starts at a high-level view and works its way down to the specific actions of your daily life. Functional planning systematizes how you schedule events, track tasks, and plan daily or individual actions. The first step in the functional planning process is project planning. This process started with identifying your priorities, then choosing your goals, next brainstorming the projects that would bring those goals to fruition, and then breaking those projects down onto a project plan. I use my project planning sheets for this, and I keep them in a dedicated section of my planner. And I've provided you with a full-size version of this sheet for you to outline your projects as well. You will do this one project at a time, and you start by defining the desired outcome of the project, the time frame, and the due date. Next, you will research the project to understand the action steps and list those out by breaking the project down into actions with their associated due dates. My project planning sheet also includes a dedicated section for resources and notes as you go through the planning process. You will turn each of your projects into a project plan like this, with actions listed out and given time-sensitive deadlines. And of course, you want to make sure that each of these projects are on that master project planning map. This way, you have that high-level view of all the things on your plate currently and coming up, and then you also have those project planning sheets that will dictate the specific actions you're going to take. Then we get to step 2, which is the monthly review. This is a monthly planning process that you will undertake every month to review your actions and keep yourself on track. This process starts by creating a monthly calendar of events that lists important reoccurring events, holidays, special dates, and important appointments. Most planners have a month on 2 pages spread that works perfectly for this view. Next, you will create a master monthly task list for all the tasks that belong to the month. This will be a running list of to-dos that you hope to accomplish that month. Next, you must review your previous month's tasks and ensure that completed items are checked off project plans to avoid confusion on next actions. And then transfer any open actions from project plans to the monthly task list that they belong to, and transfer any incomplete items from previous months to the master task list for the month as well. Essentially, you need to make sure that your project plans are up to date on what actions have already been completed and what actions are left to do. And then you need to make sure that any actions that are yet to be completed are put onto your master monthly task list so that you can keep accountable to get them done. Finally, looking at all the projects and tasks you have on the monthly list, allocate time to each project by week on the monthly calendar. I do this in the notes column of my month on 2 pages spread by distributing work for each week so I'm managing my workload. You just want to make sure that you're mapping out the time for when you expect to work on certain items. This will help you pace your work and keep on track. Step number 3 is the weekly review. This process is done on a weekly basis, so you need to choose a day and time to do this consistently. I do my review on Sunday evenings, but you can also do it Monday morning or whatever day of the week and time work for your schedule. During the weekly review process, you will review allocated project tasks and your monthly task list to identify your top 5 priority projects for the week. Not 5 individual tasks, actions, or events. Projects. Why 5? Because there are 5 days in a work week, so it sets a nice pace to aim to complete 1 a day. And because you really shouldn't be shifting your focus from too many projects. If you think 5 is too much for you, absolutely cut this number down. But by sticking to 5 projects to either complete or devote significant time to, you're being forced to prioritize and focus to get things done. Once you have those top 5 projects identified, make sure to also identify and allocate time in your schedule for appointments and scheduled events. Any place you need to be or time you have to do some dedicated activity, make sure it's marked on the proper day and the time necessary is outlined as well. If you have an appointment at 2, but it takes you a half hour to get there, make sure you note when you need to leave so when allocating your work for the day, you don't think you have more time to get tasks done. Finally, review your weekly routines and make sure you set aside time for your weekly necessities like meal planning, self-care, and chores. Step number 4 is daily planning, which is how you will plan on a daily basis. You can do this the night before or the morning of, and you will identify your top 3 tasks to prioritize for completion. Anything that may be due that day that isn't complete, or tasks that need to get done so you can move on to the next step. Once you have your top 3 identified, you can list out additional to-do items to execute. Make sure to check your master monthly to-do list for important actions. And when I say actions, I just want to make sure I'm clear that this is not top 3 projects that need to be done for the day. These are top 3 individual tasks. I find that a lot of people get confused on this point and may put a project as one of their top 3 that may have a number of different actions associated with it, and then they get overwhelmed that day and don't complete it, and then they get discouraged. Make sure the top 3 are individual actions or items that you need to execute, even if it's a scheduled event. You will also want to double check your schedule for changes and then review your daily routines to execute them. Okay, so that is the 4-step process for functional planning. But in addition to these steps that take you from the project level down to your daily planning, I also have a few more planning steps that I like to integrate to make this system successful. The first is a brain dump. I always keep this item on my master monthly task list to do at least once a month. A brain dump is the process of removing information from your brain or mental storage system and putting it down onto paper. Usually, we store a lot of info in our heads, but this is not a proper use of our brain power. Our brains are for thinking, not storage, according to David Allen, author of Getting Things Done. It's a very simple process of sitting down in a quiet space with a pen and a few pieces of paper and writing down everything that comes to mind, stream of consciousness style. Don't stop to consider anything. Don't hold anything back from the paper. Let every idea or piece of information you are holding on to go and write it down. You will know that you're done when your mind is suddenly quiet. You can also expect to feel a sense of relief and lightness after letting go of all that information you were holding on to. Perform a brain dump at least once a month and get into the habit of writing things down if that's important. And get into the habit of writing things down if they're important. Once you have completed a brain dump, you can begin to process through the information and record the information where it may belong on a project plan, task list, or a Sunday maybe list. The next part of my system is the power hour. Occasionally we find our to-do lists littered with little tasks that we've been putting off or ignoring. If these tasks are no longer relevant, they need to be crossed out as such. But if they still need to get done, but you can't seem to find the time during the workday to prioritize them, try a power hour. Set aside 1 hour a week to dedicate to these stragglers. Set a timer for 1 hour and get as many items completed as possible. This technique is also great for jumpstarting productivity on a project you're afraid to start. Just make sure you list out the items you're hoping to achieve and get to work once that timer starts. Now we get to a very important topic, planning for white space. White space is free time you block out to cushion your schedule. White space prevents overwhelm because you aren't jam-packing your schedule with to-dos, and it encourages balance because you're giving yourself time to breathe. You know you lack white space if you're constantly running late, putting out fires at work and at home, and feel like you never get ahead. If this is you, you desperately need to add white space to your life ASAP. So this is how to add white space into your life. First and foremost, say no to obligations that don't serve your priorities. I know it's hard to say no, especially to people we love, but even the most well-intentioned people will want us to get involved in pursuits that steal our time and ultimately bear no fruit for us in our lives. Stop letting other people waste your time and start learning to say no firmly but gracefully. Next, I want you to start to overestimate the amount of time it takes you to complete tasks, meetings, or errands. People who have trouble with white space tend to have trouble with accurately estimating the amount of time an activity will take. So start overestimating the numbers here to teach yourself a new way of thinking about time management. And finally, I want you to delegate or delete unimportant tasks from your to-do list. We've already talked about questioning your systems to ensure you aren't doing unnecessary work. I also want you to take a good hard look at your work and identify what tasks are just simple time wasters. I realize it can be hard to turn down work, especially if a superior is telling you to do something. But if you know it's not worth the effort, you need to approach your superior or the source of the work and reason with them. If you're getting overwhelmed at work, that means that some work just isn't getting done anyway. You are just most likely cleverly juggling tasks so that no one can tell certain work is being overlooked. It's better to be honest about what needs to end than to drop the ball one day and cause a bigger issue than it needs to be. I also don't want you to end up being one of those people who manages to get it all done, but at the expense of their personal life. If you are consistently staying at work late to finish your tasks, that is a problem that needs to be addressed because that is not acceptable for a significant period of time and will ultimately start causing issues in your personal life. And then when your personal life is going under, it will start affecting your work life. It's a vicious cycle that you don't want to get stuck in. And if you're already stuck, you need to ask for help from your superiors to get out of it. Now, not all of your to-dos are going to be related to your own personal goals and projects. Other people in your life, at home and at work, are going to give you tasks, and it's important to know how you should be managing other people's priorities. Tasks will always pop up from other people and their priorities, but please know that just because someone asks you to do something does not mean you are obligated or required to do it. There will be certain people, however, that are priorities for you, and the tasks they give you may belong to you, even if it's unexpected. This is why it's important to build white space into your day because you never know when something else is going to pop up that you will need to handle. So if you are assigned a task and it does belong to you, or you're asked to help with something and you do have the time and energy to help, you can add it to your to-do list, but make sure you are clear on the time frame, expectations, and that you make the other person aware of potential conflicts. White space and good communication can prevent stress and overwhelm when dealing with tasks that come from external sources. And then, of course, there are those other tasks. Not all tasks belong to a project plan or come from external sources. So where do they go in a functional planning system? Well, if they have a due date, make sure to mark them down on the day they're due. When you review your week, you should prioritize its completion by that due date. If they do not have a due date, but they need to be done in a timely manner, put them on your current monthly master task list. Or if you intend to complete them immediately, do it. Or add them to your daily list if you're going to get it done sometime today. If they have no due date and aren't immediately actionable, put them into a someday maybe list and check this list as part of your monthly review process. Now, let's take a look at how I approach functional planning.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys how I go through the process of functional planning. And the first step of functional planning is to do project planning, creating a project planning worksheet for each of the projects that are on your master project tracker for the year. So I've included a project planning worksheet, which is the page that I like to use for my project planning. And I've also included the notes page as well for you. So essentially, usually what I would do is I would print these back to back, but for the purpose of this video, I've put them in two separate pages so that it was easier for you guys to view it. And we're just going to take one of the projects that I already talked about from my yearly goals that we already went through on a different worksheet, and I'm going to break it down to show you how I would project plan a project from scratch. Okay, so this project planning sheet gives you some different areas to fill in. First is the goal, and the goal is obviously the yearly goal that your project pertains to. So for this one, we are working on make the house look presentable. Okay, because that was one of my goals on that goal sheet that I showed you earlier. Now the description, this is a description of the project that you are going to complete in order to make this goal a reality. So the project I am going to work on for this one is landscape the front yard. Okay, so we've got the goal and the description of the project. Next, we got to look at the term, okay? So I'm thinking that this sort of project is going to take a few months. So I'm going to say that it's going to take 1 to 2 months to complete. And I'm going to give it a due date by end of October, okay? Because we're in September now. So I think the end of October would be reasonable for when to get this done. Okay, the next area you have to fill out is this notes section that says resources. This would be a place where you would list any resources that may be able to help you during the research stage of your project planning or as you're going through this different process. So let's say that I had a name and number for a lawn service that I wanted to call to kind of get their advice or their input. I could put their phone number down here. And let's say during the process of researching how to, work on my landscaping, I came across a book that I wanted to check out. So I've got a book title here that I want to read, or some articles from the internet maybe I found that also might help me through this process. And then let's also say that perhaps my dad is really good at landscaping. So I can say talk to dad, right? So these are the resources that I've come up with. And obviously you could keep a running list for this. So once you have an idea of the general steps you're going to start taking, you want to track the action steps here on the checklist. And you also want to note a time frame or due date for the completion of these action steps. Especially if you're dealing with something that is a time-bound project, this is going to be really important. So let's say I've done my research already, and I know that the first action that I need to do is to buy some supplies, okay? And I want to get this done by the end of September, okay? So the last day of September, I want to have these supplies purchased so that in October, I can start actually working on the hard labor of doing the landscaping. Now, you notice that I didn't necessarily list the supplies out that I needed. That's where this project notes comes into play, where I could make a to buy list, okay, for the supplies that I need, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and list out the supplies that I've already researched that I need. I'm talking about mowers, edger, a tiller, some grass seed. I need some mulch, flowers, a wheelbarrow, a shovel, one of those little hand shovels, and let's say plant food for the flowers, okay? So this is my list of things that I need to buy before the end of the month, okay? And now I've got that here listed out on my notes, which is nice and good. So when I want to refer back to that, I have them already laid out. Okay, so now that I have these action steps started, right? So I know the first thing I need to do is buy the supplies. Now I'm going to fill out the rest of the general action steps that I've researched and know this is my plan moving forward for how I'm going to do this project. I'm going to say that my first part, my first action, we need to mow the lawn once we have this lawn mower. So let's say that we're going to complete this on October 1st, right? Because that's a weekend. I can mow the lawn on October 1st. And while we're working on that, let's go ahead and edge the lawn. Okay, we're going to do that also on October 1st. Next thing I know I need to do is dig up the old mulch, right? So dig up the old mulch, okay? And we're going to plant flowers as well. And then we will lay the new mulch down. All three of these things, maybe I'll do it the next weekend. So 10/8, okay? Next weekend we'll do that, okay? So let's say the next thing we need to do is, we've got the lawn mowed, we've edged it, we've dug up the old mulch, planted flowers, put the new mulch on top. Let's say that there are patches in my soil, right, that I need to reseed. So I'm going to till the soil with that tiller, and we also need to seed new grass. Okay, and then we're going to do that, let's say, the next weekend. Okay, so 10/15. Okay, and then on an ongoing basis, once this is done, we need to obviously continue to mow the lawn, right? So I'm going to say I'm going to mow the lawn 2 times a week, and I'm going to put Monday and Thursday as the days that we're going to do that. We'll edge the lawn maybe every 2 weeks, and we'll do that on the Monday. Okay. Something else I'm going to have to continuously do is water the flowers to make sure they grow, right? And that becomes my completed, more or less, project plan for landscaping my front yard. So the idea with this one is going to be that obviously things like mowing the lawn, edging the lawn, watering the flowers are things that I'm going to do routinely, right? But because I'm choosing for the next 2 months to focus on this project, I'm going to make sure that any of these dated items get done on the date. And I'm also going to make sure that these reoccurring items happen regularly so that hopefully by the end of October, my lawn is starting to fill out and it's looking nice and trim, and I've got some flowers that are healthy and growing. And then from there, it's just maintenance. So I hope that this gave you a really good look at how I would use a project planning worksheet and the notes. And obviously you've got these worksheets so that you can use this method going forward as well. Now, I also wanted to give you an example of a project planning sheet that I've actually filled out for a real project, okay? So this is actually my project planning sheet for this Planning for Success Masterclass, okay? So as you can see, I've just filled out the top here, Planning for Success Masterclass, description. It just says Planning Masterclass number 2 and the due date. Obviously, the more confident you get in this process, the less you need to be super specific about your goals and your description. Obviously, this was a project working on this Planning for Success Masterclass that really belonged to the goal, an overall goal that I have for this year of creating new projects, creating new products for my business so that I can increase my yearly revenue. So I kind of know that this is already the flow I'm in. So it wasn't so, I don't get so picky about my descriptions. For me, it's mostly about listing out those action steps and resources and any notes and having a good handle on that. So as you can see here, I just have one resource listed, Ask Mike about a plugin. And then I've got a bunch of action steps here. Some of them are already complete and some of them are yet to be complete because at this point, as I'm filming this, I still haven't completed the masterclass. So I do have some actions I still need to take. And then I do have some notes here that are a list of emails that I want to write that pertain to one of the action steps. So this is just an example of really what a typical project plan would look like for me. I don't put a ton of energy into writing these things up. It's just, I just use this as a tool to literally outline the steps I'm going to take and make sure I am frequently through my monthly review process, adding those tasks onto my monthly to-do list. So try not to get too hung up on the specifics. Obviously, if you're someone who is having a really hard time with project planning, I think that being specific in the beginning is always going to help you to learn better and to get into good habits. But for me, I tend to be really relaxed with this. Although this might be like buy the book, how to fill it out, this is really in reality what mine end up looking like. So I hope that helps. Okay, so the next step in the functional planning process is completing a monthly review. This is an action you are going to do before a new month begins. So maybe the last day of the old month or the first day of the new month, sometime before the month begins, you want to take these steps so that you can set your month up so that you're able to capture all of your scheduled items, all of your tasks, and this process will make your weekly and daily planning so much easier. So the first thing that I do as part of my monthly review is I take my monthly calendar view. In this example, this is the Charmed Life Planner. Has a month on 2 pages calendar, but whatever system you use, as long as you're at your monthly view where you can see the whole month at a glance, this is where you want to start. So the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and fill in any scheduled items, okay? So if you have any holidays, birthdays, any things that you need to remember, doctor's appointments, you're going to go ahead and write these in. So I'm going to really quickly go ahead and write in some holidays, okay? So Labor Day is on the 5th. Starbucks pumpkin spice latte came out on the 6th. These are just some kind of like cutesy things that are going on. My taxes are due this day. My planning for success masterclass is this day. I have a doctor's appointment on this day. Okay, so those are some of the holidays scheduled events that I've got for September. So the point is, when you're choosing what you're going to put in for your schedule, you want to make sure that you are choosing an item that is really important for that day. So obviously these boxes, and normally the boxes on your monthly view, are not big enough for you to list out a full like 12 or 16-hour schedule. So what you need to do is really choose the things that you need to know about when it comes to scheduling for your month. So obviously I need to know that I have a doctor's appointment on the 21st, because that means that I most likely won't be able to go out on a vacation that week, right? Because I've got something going on that day. This is really to give you a rough idea of the important events that are happening in your month, so that you have that, and it's kind of separate from your weekly or your daily plans, things that are really important for you to know about. So the next thing that I do is I tend to enter in things, right, like trash days. So our trash pickup is on Tuesday, and then on Friday, we have recyclables and trash. So I'm just going to put that in because that's like a reoccurring event that sort of happens. You could put your paydays in here if you wanted to, or any other regular events that you just want to kind of keep track of that would best fit inside of your monthly view. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to do as part of your monthly review is you are going to create a master task list for the month with all of your project and known tasks on it. Now, obviously, this is my planner. It already has a master task list created for every month, because obviously my Charm Life Planner was developed to coincide with this functional planning system. But if your planner does not have a list like this, I have included just a generic multi-purpose list for you guys to use in your class materials. So it's just a general checklist, and at the top it says tasks, brain dump, power hour, someday maybe, and it gives you the date. So what you could do for something like this is, if you were making this your master monthly task list, you could circle the word tasks, put the month up top, or fill the date in here, whatever you wanted to do. If this was going to be a brain dump list for you, again, circle brain dump. If it was your power hour list, or if you were going to use this as a someday maybe list, again, you circle what you're using this for, because it's a multi-purpose list. But it doesn't matter what the list is. The point is, you just want a place that's dedicated to where you're going to be putting your actions that are known for the month. So the way that we do this is, we first will transfer any project tasks from a project plan onto the monthly to-do list. So here we've got my Planning for Success Masterclass project plan that we did. So I'm just going to look and see, okay, I need to edit and upload, I need to film scenes, collect questions, all these things. I'm going to go ahead and just transfer them over onto this master list. Just make sure that you're moving everything over that pertains to the current month. Okay, so I've listed those out, and then we also have that project plan for doing the lawn. So I'm going to say, here I'm going to say buy lawn supplies too, because I need to do that. From that because that was due by the end of September. So I need to put it in my September master list. And then you can also fill this in with any other known tasks that don't come from a project plan. You can fill them in here. So things that I like to do on a monthly basis, I like to do a brain dump every month. I already told you guys that. I might want to make sure that I schedule a power hour, right? Maybe 4 of them, just schedule in 4 power hours. Anything that has to do with tasks that are related to this month specifically, either because they're scheduled to be done in the month or because they are open items on a project plan that could be completed this month. You want to make sure that they go onto your current master task list. Now, the final part of this as well is, and obviously I just have one sample month in here so I could show you guys for the purposes of this class. But obviously what I'd also want to do is go back to last month's master task list and make sure that I'm transferring over any open items. Because like I said, you can put an item on here if it's just an open project item that is not necessarily due in the month, but it's something you could work on if you had the time, right? So you could transfer those open items from a previous month's task list to the current month. And of course, you also want to make sure that as you go, you are checking off any things that were completed last month so that you know exactly what is due for this month, okay? And then the final thing I like to do during my monthly review is I like to try to allocate work for projects by week, okay? So what I do with this is I actually take this note section of my planner for the month on 2 pages, and I like to divide out a space for each of the weeks, right? So now I've got like a dedicated spot here that is in front of each of the weeks so that I can allocate work that I want to get done during that week. So let's say, okay, so for the month of September, I've been working on the master class, right? So I might put in here master class, master class, masterclass. Obviously, this is the last week of the masterclass, but I do have work that actually pertains to after the class, so I could still put that there. So what I could say here is I want to do filming, and I need to do the emails, and obviously I need to like upload it, right? Make sure everything gets done. Here for the week after, I can send a follow-up, and I need to repackage the product. So I have a plan for what I'm going to do with it in the future. Here I could have been working on an outline. Here I could have been brainstorming. So I can actually list out just a few important items that need to be done that week so that when it comes to my weekly review, I have an idea of what work I already wanted to partition out throughout the month. And that's just something that just saves me time and helps me to balance my work. So I'm not forgetting about something to the last minute and having to rush and do a whole bunch of work. If you do it this way, especially if you have multiple projects on your plate at one time, it's good to be able to list out like do this thing for this project, do this thing for this project, and this thing for this project at this week. And just really to be able to make sure that you are paying attention to everything that's on your plate. And then here on this last week here, I'll talk about the lawn supplies, right? Because the lawn supplies need to be purchased by the end of the month. So there's no reason for me to rush out right now and buy them. I do have till the end of the month. And since I do have a lot of other work that needs to be done because I've partitioned it out, I know that this is probably the best week for me to focus on those lawn supplies. So that is the monthly review when it comes to functional planning. Okay, so the next step of functional planning is then the weekly review process. So the weekly review is something you do once a week, and I highly suggest you picking a day and time to work on your planning. I do it on Sunday, and ultimately, I always put it as one of the important items for my Sunday. So I could go through and every Sunday list out, plan my week, plan my week, plan my week. So when it comes to the weekly review, after you've set the day that you're going to actually plan for and do your weekly review, the next step that you have to take in your review is to set your top 5 for the week, okay? So I generally just write my top 5 on my Monday column on my Charmed Life Planner, and I will start listing out the 5 projects, not the 5 individual tasks, but the 5 individual projects that will have my attention this week. And for me, it's always my blog posts, it's my YouTube videos, my newsletter, and then ultimately I always have a spot for two different projects. So one of them is going to be the masterclass, I'm going to say, and just for consistency's sake, I'm going to say buy lawn care. Okay? Because that is a project that we're already been talking about. So let's say that it was this week that it was due. Okay, so my top 5 has been set for the week, and that helps me to really just manage out what I'm going to be focusing on. And obviously, when you go to set your top 5, something that's going to help is what you had outlined for yourself during this week. That's really going to help you identify what 5 things you need to work on for the current week. Then what you need to do is take a look at your scheduled events. So let's say that on Thursday, I have a doctor's appointment at 2 p.m., okay? We want to make sure that that's listed out. And let's say that on Friday, I have a client call at 10 a.m. Okay, so those are my scheduled events for the week. And something that I might do at this point is maybe looking ahead at my week and seeing I have these 2. I might go ahead and take steps to confirm that those are still on, right? So normally a doctor's appointment, they call you the week before, but maybe I'll send an email to my client to remind her of our call and just confirm that she's still on for that call so that I'm doing my due diligence to make sure that I've got my schedule under control. Okay, so the final thing that you're going to do during a weekly review is review your routines. So your meal plan routine, self-care, any morning or evening routines you're trying to develop for yourself, anything that is a priority for you to add in a habit or add in a routine, you want to make sure that you're reviewing what your goals are for those routines during the week. So 2 resources that I've created for you guys in order to help you with this that are part of your downloads for the class are a printable sticker set and a set of journaling cards that are geared towards keeping you inspired and on track with your routines. So really quickly, I'm just going to cut these guys up and I'm going to show you exactly how I would use these in my own planner to give you some inspiration and ideas for how you could be integrating routines into your week so that you are adding these to your weekly review and setting yourself up for success during the week. Okay, so here we go. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. These are the stickers. I've just kind of cut out 2 rows because the rest of them are duplicates. And then we've got some journaling cards. Okay, so this first journaling card I have here, I've already kind of filled it out before I cut it out, which is one that says my routine, as you can see. So what I've done here is I've just filled out a simple morning routine. So I put AM here, so I knew it was a morning routine that I might be interested in working on. So if this is something like, let's say you are adding a morning routine or an evening routine or a self-care routine or a meal prep routine, if you're adding something like that, actually meal prep, we've got it here. If you're adding a different routine to your life and you want to kind of keep it front and center, you may want to use this routine little builder and write it out. It comes with lines for you to fill out, enough things as part of a routine. And then also these little spaces where if you wanted to, you could put, you could tick it off if you wanted to, like check it off that you've completed something, but I want to reuse this. So what I'm using this section for here is just putting the time. So wake up at 7, take a pill with water, meditate and do gratitude, do yoga in bed, wash up, get dressed, do my hair and makeup, and then by 8 o'clock, I want to have breakfast. So some of these things you could go in and put like 7:15 or how long it should take or whatnot. But I just kind of gave myself like a very rough outline to kind of keep me on track. And this is something that I could punch and put in my planner or just keep it somewhere in my planner so I could always refer to it or even just leave it by my bedside, honestly. So in the morning I see it and like follow through on the routine. So that's an example how I would use that. I also gave you guys a little meal plan journal card. And on this one, it has a space for you to put dinners Monday through Sunday and your grocery list. So this is just a way for you to keep track of your meal plan for the week, especially your dinners, because I find dinners the easiest thing that always kind of trip people up is the dinners, right? Next, I also have a little power hour checklist. So if you've scheduled a power hour for yourself in your planner, you can kind of keep this checklist for all those little items that you've been pushing off that you want to try to get done in the power hour, right? So that's good for that. And then finally, I gave you guys this simple little weekly tracker. What this has is lines for you to put any item, and then it's got little tick boxes for Monday through Sunday. So if this is a reoccurring event, maybe something that you want to work on as part of a routine, like waking up in the morning and making your bed, right? You could put like make bed and tick off every day that you get it done. Or this could be something like a self-care related. You could mark off the days that you actually practice self-care. Or reading, right? Like you could say you want to read for like 30 minutes and you can get ahead and check off the days that you actually accomplish that. So this is just a nice simple tracker. You can track multiple things on here. So you could build a routine, check it off, or just do one-off things, and that's very helpful. And then we've got some stickers here. So the first set of these printable stickers that I just print on just full sheet label sticker paper has quotes. So these are some of the great quotes that are going to be included in your, that are included in this masterclass. And I've just created them into like inspirational little quote boxes that you could cut off and put in a planner. They fit the Erin Condren boxes, the Charm Life planner. They fit a wide variety of different planners. The Manby planner, you could put it in, or any planner, whatever the style is, you can use these stickers to kind of motivate yourself. If there's a quote that you feel like during the course of this masterclass speaks to you, definitely I would put it in your planner if it's something that you're having trouble with. And then this final set of little stickers are more like action oriented for planning and such. So this first one here is a little habit tracker. So what we've got here is space for you to write in the turquoise for like a task, right? So let's say again that you're trying to read for 30 minutes a day. You could put read for 30 minutes and then you can tick off the Monday through Sunday. And you could just, this will just help you if you want to just focus in on maybe just a couple, like up to 5 different habits that you want to sort of build. This is a great way to kind of just take a sticker, put it in your planner, and make sure you're tracking that piece of information, because a lot of times it's hard to track routines and habits and things like that in our planners because we think that they're mostly for to-dos or our schedule, but through these little stickers, it makes it easy for you to, just keep an eye on them, just to have it somewhere in your planner where you're keeping an eye on things. And that would just be an example. I would put that in there and I would say, read for 30 minutes. And you could check off what days you did it, right? You could talk about drinking more water and check off the days you did that, right? Really, any routine, anything like that, any habit that you're trying to form, something that you want to do day over day or multiple days a week, you can use that little habit tracker. Next, we've got just this simple list Monday through Sunday. And you could use this for dinners, like meal planning your dinners. Or you could actually use it to theme your work days, right? So if you want to, I think this is a great use for something like this, is if you want to theme your work days and you want to kind of list that out. I might put that earlier in my planner. And I would say, for me, if I was, because I do theme my work days, Monday is blog posts. Tuesdays usually video. Wednesdays I do editing. Thursday I normally do like a product development. And then Fridays I work on my newsletter. So newsletters and emails and stuff like that on Friday. And then let's say Saturday is a rest day, right? And Sunday, planning, okay? So if you wanted to list out, tasks to do, one a day, anything like that. Then of course, I've also given you guys a couple of white space stickers, which guess what they're for? Blocking out white space to remind yourself to take some time for white space. You also have a self-care sticker and a victories sticker, right? So you can track your victories. And some of these things we haven't really talked about yet in this masterclass, that we'll come to them, but just some ideas for things that you can use and just little tools to help you keep your planner inspirational and on and focused on the things that are important to you, building those routines and the good habits, planning properly, keeping yourself on track with your productivity. Okay, so once you've gotten your weekly review done and you've gotten all of those things taken care of, your top five, you've put in your appointments, you've reviewed your routines, and you've made maybe like a meal plan for yourself and put it in on a little journaling card, or however you're going to do it, you've finished your weekly review. The next part and the last part of functional planning is the planning that you do on a day to day basis. Okay. So it's always important to identify your top three priorities for the day. That's why my Charmed Life Planner is set up this way, because this is all part of this functional planning and focus on actually getting things done. And so, what you'll do is from day to day, either the night before or the morning of. I do tend to do things the morning of, but it all depends. Sometimes I'm actually able to fill in to dos for more than one day, but I try not to do that. And the reason why is because you don't know how much you're going to get done today. So you can't say what work is going to need to be done tomorrow. I don't like that sort of future planning. But sometimes you have things that you know are a big priority, right? So let's say Friday, right? Here, I've got a client call at 10 a.m., it says. So let's say that I prep for my client call, right? Every day that I have a client call. So I'm going to mark on here as a top three, prep for the call, right? I already know that's something I'm going to need to do on Friday. Hands down, I'm confident I can write that in. Okay. So then when it comes to Thursday night or Friday morning, I just fill in the other two items, right? So for me, things that I would do like on Monday, like I said, blog post day for me is Monday. So I write in bulk. So I write my posts, and then I do my images, and I will schedule the posts. So those are the three individual things that I do. I write everything at once. At one time I do all the images, and at one time I put them into my WordPress and schedule them, right? So that would be the three big things I would do on a Monday, and that takes me several hours to do, which makes sense because these are my top three. And then if I had any other secondary items, right? So let's say I also needed to reply to comments, or I needed to send an email out that day, something I needed to do, someone I needed to talk to, or something like that, or if I needed to call a lawn service, right? Then I could write those things down, right? I could just keep a running list. And that's why this planner is set up to be like a running list, so that you can just write down all those tasks you need to get done and just tick them off as you go. Also, on a daily basis, once you've identified your top three, you want to make sure that you're checking your schedule to make sure nothing has changed. Okay. So let's say it's Friday morning. I have already on my list prep for call, but I'm going to put in two other to dos for the day. Maybe shoot some images and order office supplies, are priorities for that day. At the same time, after I've identified my top three, I need to make sure that that client call is still on. So maybe I would check my email and just make sure that I didn't get an update. Maybe what I would do just to confirm that this was still happening is maybe shoot an email quickly to the client just to confirm we're still on for 10, correct? So you want to make sure that you are confirming these appointments. You just want to double check to make sure nothing has changed, either that you haven't changed your mind and you can't do something, or an event's been canceled, or anything like that. You just want to make sure you know where you need to be that day and when. Sometimes that's actually a really good reason why it's a good idea to do this the night before. Because let's say this client meeting was at 8 a.m., right? And I tend to sleep until 7. It's kind of a close call for me, right? So if I had reviewed Friday on Thursday night, I would be able to go to bed on time, things like that. Make sure that I set an alarm a little bit earlier so I can still get my morning routine in before I needed to do that client call. And then, of course, I also make sure to check on my routines, right? Make sure whatever routines I'm working on for that day are getting done, no matter what that is. And as well, I will also go ahead and confirm with my husband what he wants for dinner and make sure that I'm aware of what the dinner plan, the meal plan is for that day. So all in all, functional planning is not too overwhelming. I think that it's a very simplified system for just making sure that you're getting tasks done, managing your time properly, and establishing any positive routines in your life that you do need to work on. I just think the simple act of checking on things, just checking to make sure that you've set your top three, checking on your schedule to make sure things have not changed, confirming your routines. I think that regularly reevaluating what it is that you're doing and, what your goals and plans are and what your projects are, that is a very good habit to get into. So I hope it's helped to kind of see how I would, actually lay out these sorts of things. And I hope these examples were relevant to you as much as possible. I realize that sometimes examples from my own life are a little bit different because I do work for myself, but obviously that's what the Q&A is for. If you have any specific questions on functional planning that weren't addressed in this demonstration or in the masterclass lecture, absolutely let me know.
Now we come to the third and final strategy of planning for success, routine building. And remember, routine building is that persistence part of success. For every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned. That is some great insight from Benjamin Franklin, and I believe it's true. So if you think you don't have time to spend organizing yourself, you need to understand that when you get your life organized into routines, you give yourself back time. So let's discuss routine building. To persist in excellence, we must establish routines that support our goals. Like we said earlier, excellence is not an act, but a habit. If you build those good habits, you can and will be persistently successful. The idea here is that anytime we are forced to make a choice of what to do next or where to put our focus, we lose a little bit of mental energy. But when we exchange choice for regular routine, we pick up time and save energy. This is why it's so crucial that we learn to systematize our tasks and batch work, because it wastes mental energy switching from task to task or deciding what the next step is. Certain routines create a habitual practice of excellence, but others can be created to help us control our habits and practice time management. And we're going to cover some of those today. First and foremost is the morning routine. How you spend your mornings can set you up for success or failure. So it's important to create a morning routine that includes the following. Wake up early. I know I'm not alone when I say that when I sleep in, I end up feeling worse than if I had woken up early or on time. It's just not worth it to get that extra 15 or 20 minutes in if it means I'm going to be groggy and less productive. Spend time in meditation, prayer, visualization, and gratitude. Thinking about how you want your day to look and spending just a few moments feeling grateful for the day ahead can really help frame your mind to accept challenges and be more productive. Make your bed. I think this has been scientifically proven to make you more productive, so just make sure you do it. Hydrate as soon as possible. If you feel sluggish in the morning, it may be due to dehydration. So to cure that, make sure to drink something as soon as you wake up. It'll also jumpstart your metabolism. Eat breakfast. Nutrition is important for sustaining energy throughout the day, and getting a meal in within an hour of waking is a best practice. Engage in physical activity. I've heard it said that working out actually gives you more time in the day. Again, because there's just some activities that end up creating such a positive effect that you end up getting your time back. Getting physical is definitely something I struggle with. So I'm not here to get on a high horse about this one, but I do tend to feel better if I do something active when I wake up, even if it's just going up and down the stairs a few times or stretching and doing some yoga before I get out of the bed. Okay, the next essential is your evening routine. A productive evening routine can help you decompress, process your day, and set you up for success the next morning. Include the following in your evening routine. Prep your meals. Obviously, packing your lunch for the next day is going to be a time saver in the morning. And if you can arrange what your breakfast is going to be, or at least decide what it's going to be, that'll help make your morning a little easier. Lay out your clothing. Another morning time saver that so many people rely on. Just by simply choosing what your clothes are going to be, making sure they're clean and laying them out for you to just quickly get dressed in the morning makes your morning much easier. Journal or review your day. I think this is actually really important as we actively try to initiate change. Evaluating what worked and what didn't in your day can really help you see where you struggle and motivate you to make better choices. So consider starting a journal as you go through this process of planning for success, because I think it'll help you review and understand your challenges and help motivate you moving forward. Read. I think most of us wish we had more time to read. A great time to fit this in is at night before you go to sleep, because it's relaxing, and even just reading a few pages to a chapter of a book is better than nothing. Turn off screens at least 30 minutes before bed. This is necessary for so many reasons. First, staying off your phone, iPad, or TV helps your brain wind down for the night. And also because the light from your screen can send your brain messages that it's daylight and that you must stay awake. So it's good to turn off screens as early as possible. Consider swapping your screen for a book in your evening routine, and it's going to have amazing results for your productivity. Get to bed early. Yes, if you want to wake up earlier to get your day started, you probably need to go to bed earlier too. Just understand that this isn't a one-for-one trade-off. Waking up earlier and getting a good start to your day makes you more productive, and developing this routine will create more time in your day. We all get lazy at night, point blank, no matter how early or late you woke up. So you need to get as much action in while the sun is still shining. It's just human nature. Our bodies are wired to go to sleep or get lazy when the sun goes down. So the more daylight hours you can be awake to get your work done, the more productive you're going to be. Now for the workday routine. Depending on the type of work you do, it may be possible for you to turn parts of your day into a routine. Here are some tips for how to achieve this. Get to work on time. Obviously, when you arrive late to work and you're in a rush, it spirals your day out of control. So make sure to start your workday on a good foot by getting to work on time. This does not mean you need to get to work early. Depending on your job, you may or may not be able to get into your office earlier than your scheduled work time. But regardless, just arriving on time is such a powerful habit to get into. Batch work you frequently do for specific intervals throughout the day or week. We discussed this a little bit before. Jumping from task to task wastes time and mental energy. That's why it's so important to develop systems and codify them to help you get through your workday. But whenever possible, make sure you're batching work by completing like items together so that your brain doesn't have to continually switch gears. Set a time to check and respond to emails and voicemails. They can be distracting, so don't jump up to respond every time your computer dings or your phone rings. Highly productive people create a schedule for when they actually check their email and answer their voicemail. Based on the type of work you do and the situation of your office, you may or may not be able to do this, but if you can, get into the habit of setting that schedule and sticking to it. Theme your workdays or use a block schedule to focus on specific tasks or regular projects. As someone who works for themselves, this works very well for me so that I remain focused on a single topic or project until its completion, and ultimately saves me time. If you work in a situation where you can theme your days to only work on certain types of projects, definitely give it a try, or else try using a block schedule to set aside time in your day or throughout your week to accomplish major projects and tasks. Instead of working on projects piecemeal, having a block of time, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, will help you to achieve more by remaining focused on one item. Establish an end of workday routine that includes cleaning up your workspace, organizing any in-progress tasks for the next day, and making a to-do list for the next morning. Don't underestimate how much this tip can help you structure your day and help you actually switch your mind from work to home. If you struggle with bringing your work home with you, I suggest taking time to really define an end-of-day routine for yourself that may mean ending your workday 20 to 30 minutes before you leave the building to transition your mind off work and get yourself excited for your personal or family time. Leave work on time. Yes, leaving work on time is just as important as arriving to work on time in creating that structure for your day. We don't want you to create a pattern of working late because it's hard to break those patterns. So make sure you establish that end of day routine and leave on time so you can be fully present and dedicate the allotted time to your personal life. I'm sure your friends and family and those around you will really appreciate your presence. Okay, so the next routine we all need in our life is a self-care routine. Taking care of your mental, physical, and emotional well-being should be a priority in your life to prevent the negative effects of stress and burnout. Depending on how quickly your body gets depleted of energy, you should spend time on a regular basis relaxing and recharging. Try these suggestions. Make sure to get enough sleep each night. Setting that early bedtime and wake time will help with this process. Eat at least 3 balanced meals a day and keep hydrated. Again, proper nutrition supports your energy levels so you can work at full capacity. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I would say to make sure you consult with your physician if you have any special dietary needs. But just keep yourself aware that your nutrition really plays an integral role in your energy levels and your productivity. Practice good hygiene. This is the easiest way to prevent illness and take care of yourself. Engage in stress-reducing activities like reading, meditation, and exercise regularly. If you establish that morning and evening routine, you have this pretty much covered. You see, many of these routines actually integrate with each other. So I'm not just suggesting new tasks to give you a longer to-do list every day. All of these things really integrate with each other and intertwine to help you become a more productive and successful person. And of course, set aside time each week for your hobbies. I'm often asked how to make time for personal pursuits and activities like hobbies. And like everything else, you need to schedule it in your planner and commit to the time. This may mean you have to skip watching that hour of TV one night, but you need to choose what is more important. It's okay if you choose the TV over the hobbies, but just understand that when you make that choice, you need to be willing to stand by it or make a change. When you say yes to one thing, you are ultimately saying no to many other possibilities. So just be conscious of what you are saying yes to that's taking up your time, especially if you are someone who wants to make more time for hobbies or personal activities. Okay, and now we have reached the last routine, meal planning and prep. One major time saver I think everyone needs to build into their routine is meal planning. It saves you time, money, and supports your morning, evening, and self-care routines. I know some people make meal planning seem complicated, but this is how I keep it simple. On grocery day, I decide my meals for the week. I add the ingredients to my grocery list, consulting any recipes if needed, and of course, making sure to check my refrigerator and pantry to ensure I don't already have the items. I then go out to the grocery store and purchase the ingredients. Then, if I want to prep any food, I make sure to do so on Sunday afternoon by batching my cooking and storage of the items. Obviously, the day that you choose is going to be convenient for you. But batch cooking can be a really big time saver. Then I list out the meal options in my planner, especially my dinners. And then each day I consult my husband to decide what meal we're going to have that night. So you don't need to meal plan every single meal of your week. And you don't need to commit to having a certain meal on a certain day. When you have the ingredients ready and the choices in front of you, it helps give you a sense of control while still saving time with that meal planning. Now, I will say that if you do have a really busy week and constantly end up getting takeout because you don't have time or energy to cook, seriously consider spending 2 hours on a day off batch cooking some easy meals. I will frequently buy a bunch of chicken breasts, season it lightly, and cook it, and then eat it throughout the week with different sauces and quick sides like microwavable vegetables, quick cook rice, or sweet potatoes. Or I will take multiple portions of a protein and prepare it in a crock pot and serve it for dinner over a couple of days. My husband loves when I make Southwestern-styled pulled chicken in the crock pot, a pork loin, or even a hearty stew. It takes such little prep time but can serve us for a few days if we make a big batch. It's such a time and money saver. Takeout may be a time saver, but it's definitely not conducive to good nutrition and productivity.
Okay, so one final worksheet that I've included with your class materials that is specifically designed to help you with routine building is this action tracker. And you actually saw already a little mini version of this that was a journaling card that I created that you guys could use as part of your weekly planning and just something to keep in your week to keep you motivated and on track. That was a very similar concept, except that it was 1 week at a time. It was Monday through Sunday at a time, where you could track a specific routine or a specific habit or just a specific task that you do over and over and over again. Instead, this action tracker lists out a full month of checkboxes, so you can actually keep track of your habits and routines over the course of an entire month. So the idea for this is that if you are going to add in a routine, as I already told you, I want you to only add in one routine at a time if it's something new to you. So let's say that right now, let's say it's September now, and you want to establish a morning routine, right? What you would do is if this was me, I would put the month and I would say the routine that I'm trying to build. And I would list out all the things that I want to do in that routine. So maybe wake up at 7. You guys already kind of saw this. Take a pill in the morning with water, which is important for hydration. Meditate and do gratitude. Do yoga in bed and stretch. Wash up for the day, dress for the day, do my hair and makeup, and eat breakfast. Okay? So if I list out this routine for myself, and every day I go through and check off what I actually was able to get done. So maybe what happens is you might skip something in your day, or you find that you're able to hit this routine over and over. The idea is that day after day, you can track these actions, and hopefully after a month of doing it consistently, or at least keeping it on top of your mind consistently, you've gotten your routine to a place where it is natural for you to wake up and take your pill with water, meditate and do gratitude, do some yoga in bed, get washed up, dressed, hair and makeup, breakfast, whatever your specific routine is. At the end of that month, hopefully you are in that routine firmly enough so that the next month you can do another one of these trackers. And of course, you have this is your insert. It's digital. You can print it out as much as you want, so you could use it every month. You could create a couple of these, maybe one for work routines and one for home routines, or just add another one for reoccurring monthly tasks like bills or trash days or anything that you want to keep track of for the month and just make sure that it's getting done. You can use this action tracker, list out what the item is, and check off when you've actually completed it. So I hope this helps you guys take that first step and really start establishing those good positive habits and routines in your life, because routines are so important for you to get organized. And like Benjamin Franklin said, every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned. So when you organize your day into routines like this, you're just saving yourself time and building those positive habits that are going to take you down the road of success and turn you into a habitually successful person.
Okay, so that was a lot of information to process, I am sure. There was a lot to think about, and now I'm sure you're wondering how to even get started executing on all this strategy. So I want to spend some time giving you some tips for moving forward. First and foremost, get your priorities, goals, and project plans in order with the class materials and downloads. Next, begin using the functional planning method to keep on top of your tasks and schedule in your planner. Finally, start introducing new routines into your life one at a time. Don't go too fast. It can be overwhelming. Start with one routine a month, make it stick, and then add the next routine. It's all about getting on track and staying on track as much as possible. It is so hard to start new routines, so once you've defined them, you need to put measures in place to support them. Block out time in your calendar on a weekly basis to plan. Make this a consistent event on your schedule that does not conflict with anything else, and make no other plans during that time. If you're someone who struggles with planning, this is a must for you. Next, set alarms and reminders on your phone to keep you on track of your routines. A paper planner is great, but its one downfall is that it doesn't alert you when you have something to do. So set those alarms and reminders on your phone or your computer, any gadget that will remind you at a certain time to do something. That will help you keep track of your routines. And finally, I want you to keep inspiration all around you, from your phone to your computer, desk, car, and even your social media feeds. It will motivate you to stick to your plans, give you the willpower to act, and through consistent action, you begin to change your habits. So think about what your goals are and maybe find a picture or put together a collage of what that goal means to you or what that goal looks like in your life. And then keep those images around you so that you always stay on track and remember what you are working towards and what you're working for. And of course, I want you to reward yourself. Rewards are great motivators for habit changes. Set yourself a reward for completing projects, sticking to habits, and of course, reaching your goals. At the very least, understand that these changes bear rewards of their own. When you lay out your clothes the night before and have your lunch packed, you can reward yourself with an extra 15 minutes of sleep because you've given yourself that extra time. Of course, once you have implemented a few of these positive habits and routines, you will have more than just an extra 15 minutes in your day. Little wins add up to big changes very quickly. And these changes don't just pertain to your schedule, but also to your mind. It's important to be proactive versus reactive. So get into the habit of being proactive. A proactive person lays out their clothing the night before, cleans up after themselves, meal plans, does food prep for the week ahead, anticipates their needs and the needs of others they are responsible for. A reactive person is always behind, waits until things are due or late before getting started, only seems to get done the bare minimum, and falls into bad habits because they're too exhausted to take care of themselves. I don't want you to be a reactive person, so if you are reactive, switch your mind to being proactive. It's always the better way to go, and definitely the mindset of a successful person. But of course, you also need to be realistic and have grace with yourself. You may be excited to get started, but just remember not to get overzealous with your expectations and take on too much too soon. You also need to acknowledge that just because you implement these strategies does not mean that you will never have a conflict, arrive late, or miss a deadline. Life happens. There will always be times when you need to work late to finish a project, skip part of your self-care routine to attend an event, or you completely forget to do the laundry. Just don't panic. You also may be in a season of your life or come to a season of your life where overwhelm is unavoidable. So have grace with yourself. Understand that this is just a phase. And the more strategic you can be about using your time, the quicker you can make your way out of it. And last but not least, track your victories. Making progress on these strategies isn't easy, and you can easily get discouraged. Keep track of all the little wins you have. If you don't, you will look back and think you accomplished nothing. But if you do, it will help you to see the progress that you've made and keep you motivated to continue. So I want to ask you a very important question one more time. How do you become successful? You become successful by identifying your priorities and goals, turning your goals into actionable plans, building the routines that sustain your energy and productivity, and of course, executing on it all. I've taught you the approach, but it's up to you to execute. Don't forget to utilize the class materials to get started applying what you learned. And now I want to open this conversation up to each of you. So head on over to the second video now to begin our Q&A session.